So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the special town meeting this January 18th, 2023 to order. It is 7 p.m. and we will begin with the reading of the legal notice by our town clerk.
Legal notice, Town of Thompson special town meeting, January 18th, 2023. Pursuant to Section 7-1 of the Connecticut General Statutes, revision of 1958, as amended, public notice and warning is hereby given to the electors and those qualified to vote at the town meetings of the Town of Thompson, Connecticut, that a special town meeting of said town will be held at the Thompson Public Schools Auditorium, 785 Riverside Drive in North Grovenordale, Connecticut, on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. for the following purposes. 1, to consider a resolution. A, to appropriate $13,200,000 for costs related to the HVAC project at Thompson Public Schools building, contemplated to consist of new heating and cooling systems, HVAC units, boilers, dedicated outdoor systems, and control systems. The appropriation may be spent for design, acquisition, installation, site improvements, removal of materials and discarded equipment, permitting and environmental cost, equipment, materials, site improvements, switches, wiring, pipes, sensors, thermostats, and other related equipment, architectural, engineering, and other consultant fees, legal fees, net interest on borrowing and other financing costs and other expenses related to the project and its financing, including the preparation of a schematic drawings and outline specifications for the project. The Town Building Committee for the project shall determine the particulars and scope of the project and may reduce or modify the project, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified. The town anticipates applying for and receiving a grant from the State Department of Education to defray a portion of the eligible costs of the project, and no amount of the appropriation may be expended until the town receives evidence of the state's approval of the grants for the project. B, to authorize the issue of bonds or notes of the Town of Thompson in an amount not to exceed $13,200,000 to finance the appropriations, to provide that the amounts of bonds or notes to be issued shall be reduced by any grants received for the project. To authorize the issue of temporary notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $13,200,000 in anticipation of such bonds or notes and the receipt of project grants, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer of the Town of Thompson to determine the amounts, dates, interest rates, maturities, redemption provisions, form, and other details of the bonds or notes, and to perform all other acts which are necessary or appropriate to issue the bonds or notes. C, to take such action to allow temporary advances of available funds which the town reasonably expects will be reimbursed from the proceeds of tax-exempt borrowings, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer to bind the town pursuant to such representations and covenants as they deem necessary or advisable in order to maintain the continued exemption from federal income taxation of interest on bonds, notes or temporary notes authorized by the resolution if issued on tax-exempt basis, including covenants to pay rebates of investment earnings to the United States in future years, and to make representations and enter into written agreements for the benefit of holders of the bonds or notes to provide secondary market disclosure information, which agreements may include such terms as they deem advisable or appropriate in order to comply with applicable laws or rules pertaining to the sale or purchase of such bonds, notes, or temporary notes. And D, to authorize the first selectman, the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, and other proper officers and officials of the town to apply for and accept grants or loans to finance the appropriation for the project, and to enter into any grant or loan agreement, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen, first selectman, treasurer, Board of Education, superintendent of schools, and other proper officers and officials of the town to take all other action which is necessary or desirable to complete the project, and to issue bonds, notes, and temporary notes, and to obtain grants to finance the appropriation for the project. Okay. 2, to consider a resolution. A, to appropriate $500,000 for cost related to exterior door replacement and other security improvements at Thompson Public Schools building. The appropriation may be spent for the acquisition and installation of doors, equipment, and materials, including but not limited to doors, locks, hardware alarms, identification systems, camera and video equipment, exterior lighting, door access controls, window replacement and related equipment, consulting fees, legal fees, net interest and borrowings, other finance costs, and other expenses related to the project. The town building committee for the project shall determine the particulars and scope of the project and may reduce or modify the project, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified. B, to authorize the issue of bonds or notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $500,000 to finance the appropriation, to provide that the amount of bonds or notes to be issued shall be reduced by any grants received for the project, to authorize issue of temporary notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $500,000 in anticipation of such bonds or notes and the receipt of project grants, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer of the town to determine the amounts, dates, interest rates, maturities, redemption provisions, form, and other details of the bonds or notes, and to perform all other acts which are necessary or appropriate to issue the bonds or notes. C, to take such action to allow temporary advances of available funds which the town reasonably expects will be reimbursed from the proceeds of tax-exempt borrowings, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer to bind the town pursuant to such representation and covenants as they deem necessary or advisable in order to maintain the continued exemption from federal income taxation of interest on the bonds, notes, or temporary notes authorized by the resolution, if issued on a tax-exempt basis, including covenants to pay rebates of investment earnings to the United States in future years, and to make representations and enter into written agreements for the benefit of holders of the bonds or notes to provide secondary market disclosure information, which agreements may include such terms as they deem advisable or appropriate in order to comply with applicable laws or rules pertaining to the sale or purchase of such bonds, notes, or temporary notes. And D, to authorize the first selectman, the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, and other proper officers and officials of the town to apply for and accept grants or loans to finance the appropriation for the project, and to enter in any grant or loan agreement, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen, first selectman, treasurer, Board of Education, superintendent of schools, and other proper officers and officials of the town to take all other actions which is necessary or desirable to complete the project, and to issue bonds, notes, or temporary notes, and to obtain grants to finance the appropriation for the project. 3, to consider a resolution to appropriate $1.5 million for costs related to the removal and replacement of outdoor athletic track at Thompson Public Schools building. The appropriation may be spent for the demolition of the existing track, removal and disposal of materials, design and planning costs, acquisition and installation of new track surface, repairs and improvements to surrounding grounds, consulting fees, engineering, planning, legal fees, net interest and borrowings, other financing costs, and other expenses related to the project. The town building committee for the project shall determine the particulars and scope of the project and may reduce or modify the project, and the entire appropriation may be extended on the project as so reduced or modified. B, to authorize the issue of bonds or notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million to finance the appropriation, to provide that the amount of bonds or notes to be issued shall be reduced by any grants received for the project, to authorize the issue of temporary notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million in an anticipation of such bonds or notes and the receipt of project grants, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer of the town to determine the amounts, dates, interest rates, maturities, redemption provisions, form, and other details of the bonds or notes, and to perform all other acts which are necessary or appropriate to issue the bonds or notes. C, to take such action to allow temporary advances of available funds which the town reasonably expects will be reimbursed from the proceeds of tax-exempt borrowings, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer to bind the town pursuant to such representations and covenants as they deem necessary or advisable in order to maintain the continued exemption from federal income taxation of interest on bonds, notes, or temporary notes authorized by the resolution, if issued on a tax-exempt basis, including covenants to pay rebates of investment earnings to the United States in future years, and to make representations and enter in written agreements for the benefit of holders of the bonds or notes to provide secondary market disclosure information, which agreements may include such terms as they deem advisable or appropriate in order to comply with applicable laws or rules pertaining to the sale or purchase of such bonds, notes, or temporary notes. Indeed, to authorize the first selectman, the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, and all other proper officers and officials of the town to apply for and accept grants or loans, to finance the appropriation for the project, and to enter in any grant or loan agreement, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen, first selectman, treasurer, Board of Education, superintendent of schools, and other proper officers and officials of the town to take all other action which is necessary or desirable to complete the project, and to issue bonds, notes, or temporary notes, and to obtain grants to finance the appropriation for the project. 4, pursuant to Section 7-7 of the Connecticut General Statutes, revision of 1958, as amended in the resolution adopted at referendum held October 9, 1997, regarding the submission of non-budgetary appropriations to referendum, to adjourn said special town meeting at its conclusion, and to submit the resolutions to be presented under items 1 through 3 of this notice to a referendum vote to be held on Tuesday, January 31st, 2023, between the hours of 12 p.m., noon, and 8 p.m. Electors will vote at the following polling places: District 1, Thompson Library Community Center, 934 Riverside Drive, North Grovenordale. District number 2, Town Office Building, 815 Riverside Drive, North Grovenordale. District number 3, Quinnebog Fire Department, 720 Quinnebog Road. District number 4, East Thompson Fire Department, 530 East Thompson Road, Thompson. Persons qualified to vote in town meetings who are not electors will vote at the Town Office Building, 815 Riverside Drive, North Grovenordale. Absentee ballots will be available from the town clerk's office at Town Hall. Absentee ballots will be counted at the following central location: Conference Room, 2nd floor, Town Office Building, 815 Riverside Drive, North Grovenordale. Action on said items at the town meeting will be limited to reasonable discussion only. The aforesaid resolutions to be presented under items 1 through 3 of this notice will be presented to the voters under the following headings respectfully. Excuse me. Shall the town of Thompson appropriate $13,200,000 for costs related to the HVAC project at Thompson Public Schools building, and authorize the issue of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation? Shall the town of Thompson appropriate $500,000 for costs related to exterior door replacement and other security improvements at Thompson Public Schools building, and authorize the issue of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation? Shall the town of Thompson appropriate $1.5 million for costs related to the replacement of the outdoor athletic track at Thompson Public Schools building, and to authorize the issue of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation? Voters approving the resolution will vote yes, and those opposing said resolution will vote no. Copies of the resolutions will be available at the town clerk's office. This is dated at Thompson, Connecticut, this 22nd day of December 2022, your Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Ms. Waldron. At this time, according to Connecticut State Statute, we do have to appoint a moderator to preside over this town meeting. Are there any nominations for moderator at this time?
Oh, I'll nominate Frank McGarry.
We have a, oh, I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. We have the nomination. He's not present. We have a motion to nominate Frank McGarry. Is there a second? We have a second from Tara Penn Gesek. Any other nominations? Is there any other nominations at this time? Is there a motion to close nominations? Okay, John Rice, motion to close nominations. Is there a second? Second from Jessica Bolte. All in favor of closing nominations? Aye. Opposed? Okay, nominations are closed at this time. So the motion that is presented is to nominate Frank McGarry to preside as moderator over this town meeting. All in favor of appointing Frank McGarry as moderator, say aye. Anyone opposed? Mr. McGarry? You will, please. We kind of shifted things around.
Who wishes to speak in favor of these items? Mrs. St. Ange?
So, thank you, Mr. McGarry. I do want to discuss the format. This town meeting is an informational town meeting. In order for us to share information about the 3 resolutions, additionally, there will be question and answer time, comment period. At this time, I would like to move to the presentation that we have put together for the public, and I would like to ask Brian Santos to come and present that PowerPoint. There are no motions. No, according to the attorneys.
All set?
Yes.
So make sure the clicker is working. There it is.
Brian?
So,
Brian,
Oh,
would you
yeah.
like to use this?
oh, I got a special little thing on
Oh,
my.
my goodness.
Oh, we are hooked up here tonight. All right, so first and foremost, thank you very much to the town selectmen and women for putting this together tonight. I also want to thank all of you for coming out in attendance. Truly do appreciate it. These are very, very important topics, all 3 of them. So just the order of the presentations, it will go the HVAC first, the security second, and then the track third. We will ask that all questions be held, write them down after each presentation, but we're going to answer them after the 3rd presentation just to get through all the information, okay? So again, my name is Brian Santos. I'm a building committee member. I'm the owner of W.T. Rich Company in Natick, Massachusetts. I am a town resident. My firm is a construction management firm. I do high-end school projects and other municipal buildings, and I do about $200 million worth of revenue a year with specializing in schools such as this. Yes, that photo is probably about 10 years old. As John Lanke pointed out, I've gained about 30 pounds. Thank you, John, for that. So maybe I should update that a little bit more gray hair, but that's okay. We'll get beyond that. 2 representatives from HF Lens are here with me tonight. I want to thank them for putting a majority of this presentation together for the HVAC, and I also want to thank the building committee for helping me put together the track and the security presentations here tonight. So I'm going to hand it off to Scott right now, then Paul might jump in from time to time, and then Mr. Birch as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Kranak. I am a project engineer with HF Lens Company. We also have Paul Fadez, who is a senior mechanical engineer with our firm. He'll be speaking tonight as well. We're a multidisciplined engineering company, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection. We have civil engineering as well as structural engineering. Definitely have vast experience in the K through 12 market with building assessments, equipment assessments, and recommendations. Basically, we put this PowerPoint together as a informational piece to provide you guys, and also will be available for questions. So this will be a high-level presentation, basically on how we got here and what we have learned along the way as we've reviewed the facilities here. Just from a facilities history perspective, approximately 405,000 square feet of space between the 4 buildings. We've done a thorough review of the mechanical systems. Just high level for now in a summary, the high school has a 2008 renovation space that has systems in fair to good condition. The 1988 renovation spaces, those pieces of equipment were not updated since then, are approximately 35 years old and approaching the end of useful life. For the middle school, same situation, 2008 renovation included upgrades to equipment. That equipment is in fair to good condition. Same scenario in regards to the 1978, 10 years before the high school, so that equipment is 45 years old and approaching end of life. The elementary school, Same thing as the middle school. There's a 1978 portion, 45-year-old systems, again, at a point where systems are at end of life, capability to maintain available parts just not there. And then also the administration and museum building, that was in our original scope, so we have looked at that. That was a 1908 original construction, and those systems as well, although not 1908, are at the end of useful life. So that's just a summary in regards to high level with the facilities that are on this campus. Just as a background in regards to how we got involved and where we're at today, last summer in July, the building committee brought us on board as a firm to do a facility assessment for all HVAC systems. With that, we were to review existing conditions, evaluate the conditions of the systems, and make recommendations for improvements. Obviously, knowing equipment is 35 and 45 years old, the district proactively engaged us to start that process to fully understand where the systems were. And obviously, coming out of the epidemic, that added increased sensitivity to HVAC systems. And that's being seen across the state as well as the country, where having a real idea of where current systems lie in regards to useful life and what potentially could come down the road. So districts across the state and country are bringing in firms like ours to do these assessments. And that was in July. In August, we commenced a review of existing documentation. We looked at existing drawings, original building drawings, trying to get a sense of what systems were deployed on original construction, how they were deployed, what the intended use was. So we did some homework before we ever got in the field. Shortly after that, we did make a site survey. We brought our team out, several engineers, mechanical, electrical, looking at the HVAC systems. Building by building, we went through individual rooms, classrooms, boiler rooms, mechanical rooms, basically the nuts and bolts of everything. Took covers apart, looked at what we could in regards to opening of systems where we could based on the scope. In October, we completed our preliminary assessment and really put together our first draft for review with the building committee. And that included recommendations that we saw from a global perspective in regards to what we had seen, with no other charge than to take a neutral look at it and provide assessments and recommendations. Shortly after that is when we got a real wake-up call from the state. In October, the state announced a $75 million grant program to be provided to K through 12 districts for the upgrade of HVAC systems in regards to indoor air quality. And you're going to see within our presentation the IAQ, and that's indoor air quality. The foundation of the project and the grant process by the state was with this in mind. Shortly after that, they actually bumped that number to $150 million, and they're making that money available to districts for upgrades to HVAC systems. And that changed our process. And really, we had to get with the building committee and go over that, because it put a lot of pressures in regards to specifics of what a grant like that does in regards to how you position yourself, how you document narratives, drawings, and all the inclusion of what needed to be provided for that. And in looking in that, it was rather obvious, but not so obvious, that we needed to change our approach and change up what we had already generated to meet the requirements of the grant. And with that grant, the state would provide money back for those systems. So we move forward with that. And the way the grant was positioned was that these are federal monies that have to be spent by December of 2024. And that federal money worked its way to the state. The state had the money. So how it fully worked internally, not too sure, just that it's available, but you have to meet strict guidelines. And with that, we had to submit by December 1. Very tight timeline, October announcement, by December 1 submission. With that, a couple of the requirements is the district had to have a assessment that was done by a professional engineering firm. There had to be schematic design drawings produced that started the beginning concept design and narratives of what that system would be. And then the one that probably hurt us the most was there needed to be a third-party cost estimate. As architects and engineers, we typically provide opinions of probable cost for projects as we go through the various phases. But the state put a mandate that it had to be third-party. They wanted real numbers, real situations, escalations in the marketplace, lead times with getting equipment. They really wanted the third party to be involved because of the tight timelines and the state money. So we did bring on a third-party estimator, and that's a portion of how we got to the budget that we're working with now and that they've included within the announcements. That's basically how we got to the grant process. With that, I'm going to provide some basically high-level overview, and then Paul will come up and give some technical aspects in regards to the actual HVAC systems. So as I had noted, we had done some existing drawing review. That's part of the process in regards to research and investigation. It's critical that we get involved at a very low level in regards to the systems. So that's what we started with. We did the site investigations. We reviewed the findings, analyzed existing equipment conditions, and we prioritized potential upgrades. And with that, it had to be in mind with the grant process, which we were now working with to meet the December 1 deadline. We did provide a report that basically reworked our previous report to a phase 1. The phase 1 included recommendations in regards to scopes of work that could be included within the indoor air quality grant. Phase 2 work was work that was not eligible, i.e. the administration and museum building. No work within those buildings can be included within the grant process. So those upgrades were put to phase 2. And there was other items as well that was put into phase 2 or future phases. Again, we were looking at a holistic approach. So we didn't abandon everything that we were initially charged with. We kind of repurposed it to future work, but could not include it within the grant process or the phase 1. Some of the observations that we did note along the way, just from a campus-wide observation, is that outside air is a major lack thereof within the facilities, not meeting current codes to interior spaces, something that you really don't think of along the way. There's 7 separate boiler rooms on the campus feeding these buildings, very challenging spaces. Some are up high on roof in outdoor enclosures. There's no central plant, if you will, that feeds all 4 buildings. So many pieces of equipment, many potential failures, and definitely something that we noted in regards to how the deployment and topology of the systems were designed. One other thing with the boilers we noted is that based on design parameters, they were designed with a +7 outdoor air temperature, and typically we would be much lower than that. And based on that number, we noted several spaces with underheating performance within the facility. So there are cold areas, and there's areas where, based on the boiler capability, we could potentially improve there. And one of the biggest things we noted campus-wide is the pneumatic controls. Pneumatic controls is a 1970s technology, very end-of-life technology. Parts are not available, failures occur, and bigger issues happen. The other thing with pneumatic controls is personnel. Having trained staff that are still around that can operate, maintain, and keep those systems running throughout the school calendar year is challenging for districts. So that's a major issue that we see in regards to the systems, and that's on the control side. Just from equipment observations, we touched a little bit on this in regards to age. Obviously the high school, I quoted 35 years for some of that equipment. Middle school, elementary school, 45 years for some of that equipment. Actually, one thing that did happen, which was interesting, is that after we got started in the process and we hit the fall and the start of the heating season, we got notice from the district that one of the middle school boilers had failed during startup and there was leaks. And it went back to our report in regards to some of the recommendations and findings that we had. We were actually getting validation as we started up the systems that what we had noted was coming in the near future was actually happening before our eyes. So that was interesting. That is included within the phase one. So hopefully if this moves forward, that would be part of this project. It's going to be money spent because it has to get updated, but hopefully it's under this project. Elementary school cafeteria, that unit was 78 as well, and that was well beyond useful life. So overall, just a summary of what the phase one scope of work would be and what is included within our actual budget, as well as what was submitted to the grant. So campus-wide would be a building management system upgrade. This would be a digital system, and this would replace the pneumatic controls that are currently deployed. Campus-wide also, it would be boiler blend controls. That's a smaller portion of the overall project, but it provides longer life equipment and additional technical advantages, so that we included that. At the high school, upgrade the existing 1988 air handling units to DOAS units, dedicated outside air systems, and those would have AC capabilities. The middle school, replace the office unit. And then also at the middle school, we had replacing the cafeteria unit, which was previous, as well as the boilers. Elementary school that utilizes in-wall unit ventilators. So that would be a replacement under the phase one. And then also the heating and ventilation unit for the cafeteria. So that's basically each building that was eligible for grant monies and what the scope of work would be included. So I'll let Paul talk a little more in regards to some of these specific items. We're going to try to keep it at a higher level, not too technical. But again, if questions come up as we're going through this and you want additional information and we need to get into weeds a little bit, go ahead. That's why we're here. We're here to give you kind of the engineer's perspective and to provide the information that you need. So I'll turn it over to Paul and let him continue. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So HVAC controls, Scott's been talking about that. The difference, the controls in the past used compressed air, right, to be able to switch valves from open to closed, and by setting up valves in series and everything, you could get a lot of things accomplished with HVAC systems. It was quite an achievement, but of course today, most of that kind of equipment has been replaced by computers. So when we talk about DDC, BMS, BAS, which is direct digital controls, building automation systems, building management systems, we're talking about computerized controls with electric actuators. With that kind of equipment, we can do a lot more. With the HVAC systems, we can have better control, we can have better indoor air quality, better indoor environmental quality, and we also get a lot of energy savings, a lot more than with pneumatic systems. Now, Bill and his staff has done a tremendous job keeping the pneumatic systems up and operating, but it is, as we mentioned, right, they are obsolete as a rotary telephone is today, right, and they're not coming back. We have spoken with other districts where they're going on eBay to buy parts, right, because they just have no other choice. So it's the control system changes. There's a lot of advantages to it. Like I say, a lot of cost savings, energy savings, 5 to 15%. It depends on how and when the system is fully implemented, and it also depends on how it's operated now. A lot of school districts will operate things manually, but they save a lot of energy. They learn over time, for example, they can shut the boilers off in the afternoon, and the first person who comes in the morning turns them back on. Well, that's tough to beat if you can build it can coast all the way through during the night. So, but this would all be automated, and we'd be able to take advantages of all the technology and replace a system that is really obsolete. Dedicated outdoor air systems, that's what DOAS we call it. They are designed, older HVAC equipment was designed pretty much to mix outdoor air with air recirculated from the building. And over time, that we've learned that outdoor air is very important, obviously, for human beings, and that's not necessarily the best way to both provide heating and cooling and ventilation or outdoor air to the space. So a lot of times we divorce the two, and a dedicated system just brings in the amount of outdoor air that's required, fully conditions it, heat it, cools it, humidifies it or dehumidifies it, depending on what the district is looking for, and then sends it into the spaces. There's been a lot of studies back in 2006 and even later, and of course, many more studies in the last 3 years with the pandemic about outdoor air and its effect on in school for students. We've all learned about that, and one of the things that outdoor air can do, and it's been found by large statistical studies that in general, that our outdoor air environment inside classrooms can help students study, learn, and do better on tests. So it does have that advantage. Because these would be dedicated systems or only providing outdoor air, not heating and cooling, they're more efficient. They have their own control systems that can do amazing things with operating at part load and only providing the outdoor air needed. Say, in this space, we only need so much outdoor air now because it's not full. In an hour from now or 2 hours from now, it'll be empty. It doesn't need any outdoor air. We can do that all automatically and then have energy savings. Although in a lot of the cases, as Scott pointed out, the indoor air quality in the schools isn't as good, and the requirements for outdoor air in the building codes have changed. The 70s, there was the oil energy crisis. So the organizations that worked on outdoor air said, oh, let's reduce that because outdoor air could be the most expensive part of an HVAC system, the conditioning of outdoor air. That was a mistake, and in the 80s we had sick building syndrome, buildings moldy, mildew, torn down. So in the past 40 years, they've done a lot of research, gotten the airflow rates where they used to be, and they are bigger than, say, the airflow rates that we used in 1978 or even 1988 when the buildings were first designed. So that's why the savings could be, in some locations, zero, depending on if we're increasing the outdoor air to meet the current codes, as opposed to getting energy savings out of more efficient equipment. But this is one of the most efficient ways of providing outdoor air to the spaces, as well as providing the air to keep students healthy and learning. We talked a lot about the boiler systems. Bill was telling us, right, that this cast iron section that broke on the boiler and everything, they're not making them anymore because the federal government is increasing the efficiency, the minimum efficiency of cast iron sectional boilers you have here in Thompson, and so it can't get the parts. And here's a case where it's just, a legal requirement is forcing a change. And so that's a tough thing. And also learning that, talking to Bill and his staff and everything about not the best design temperature at 7 degrees, right, for around here. I'm sure it gets below 7 degrees quite a bit, although thankfully not lately, especially in the school where Bill was able to put back the boiler that did break and everything and has it operational now. So he's doing a great job for it. Why are we trying to do this work now? Because of the grant from the state, right? We get a significant advantage getting your money back into the town, right? The money that you pay to the state, your state taxes, bring it right back and bring it back into the town. As we pointed out, the equipment is vulnerable, right? As we learned this fall, right, the boiler, one boiler failed. As an aside, cast iron sectional boilers are susceptible to thermal shock. And thermal shock is dealt with blending controls, which Bill has instituted in a lot of the boilers, but not all of them. I'm not sure if that one had blend controls on the one that failed. Do you know, Bill?
Sure, but that wasn't wrong.
Okay, very good. Okay, so a lot of the equipment in the schools is getting beyond its age, and it's always better to replace things with a plan as opposed to an emergency, right? You never get as good a pricing when you're, say we're in an emergency, the place is freezing, right? The pipes are breaking and everything, so we're trying to plan ahead, come up with a plan and take advantage of state funding. And we talked about the pneumatic controls, and they can do good things. They're not as efficient, they're not as capable, they're not as fast acting as today's computerized controls. Especially from 1978, so we will get significant cost savings, energy savings, operational savings as well. As we pointed out, the outdoor, it's hard to keep up with the building codes, right? They change all the time. But we did learn during the pandemic and everything that a lot of buildings are not ventilated as well as they should be, or the ventilation is not provided correctly. For example, some of the systems here in the school, you have a unit ventilator in the wall, big long thing, big box and everything. So it brings in outdoor air conditions, it's kind of noisy. And then out in the hallway, usually there are exhaust fans that take that fresh air that's brought into the classroom and exhaust it out the building. But it's not recirculated. The energy in it is not recovered. It's efficient for bringing in outdoor air, but it's not very efficient from an energy standpoint. So that's another reason that we will make a significant energy savings by getting rid of those kind of systems. A reason to delay, not to delay, because it's just more money going out of the town every year for heating and in certain areas too. I mentioned indoor environmental quality. I switched to A2E to add things like sound and everything. Although there have been many studies, there are state requirements for sound levels in classrooms. They're not always, there are exclusions to that, but it can make harder. As adults, we can tune out noise. It's just something like, for example, I can hear the fan motors running, right, the projector motors, but I just tune it right up. Right? But kids cannot do that. When they're smaller, the kids, the elementary kids, they haven't learned how to do that yet. So it makes learning harder for them. So that's another reason to go with systems that, that we would not select or recommend systems to you that would make that worse or make it better. So it's another reason to make the school system better, equivalent to bringing in more outdoor air, to better learn, keep you more awake, keep your students, paying attention. And one of the last lines, which was one of the goals of the state and everything, $150 million program and everything, is to prepare HVAC systems for infectious outbreak. Kind of cut it short there with our first pandemic in 100 years. And,
Thank you very much. All right, so budget and financial picture. Worked very closely with Bill Stiglitz on some of the mill rate numbers, so we can tackle those a little later as well, if the crowd chooses to do so. But the overall project budget estimate is at $13.2 million. That estimate was completed by a third party organized by HF Lens and deeply reviewed by the building committee. We did appropriately add construction and estimated contingencies were applied. In this one in particular, given market conditions, we did add bid and escalation contingencies as well. We wanted to make sure that we were doing our due diligence to capture appropriate costs. Everyone is faced with increased costs these days, and so is construction. So we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and we can stand behind that $13.2 million without exceeding that. It's very, very important that we capture that. Paul and Scott outlined some savings, but in addition, with the mechanical efficiency and technology advancements, there's additionally operational cost savings that will be realized as well overall from all these systems. So reduction in oil use, electrical, and everyone seems to forget about the hard work of the custodial staff, the facilities engineers behind the scenes working on it from a labor standpoint as well. So I just want people to recognize that there's additional labor costs that will be reduced. As everyone stated here before, the state is offering 68.2%, leaving 31.8% to the taxpayers. And I just want to make a critical note, that is your taxpayer dollars coming back to this town. I think that's a very important point. Bill rate impacts, now these are conservative numbers, right, Bill? 2025, it's 70 cents with interest, and then there's some reduction in bond adjustments from the grant, puts it at 57 cents, and then eventually comes down from there. 2027 is 50 cents. So we took the average home value of $225,000 assessed at 70%, or $157,500 at a mill rate of 50 cents. That would leave $78.75 per year. I also just want to make a note here before we move on that this is a town asset. These are town requests. All three of these are town requests. I think that's important to note. So if you come away with anything on the side there with 3 check marks, ignoring end-of-life mechanical equipment for the school does not make them go away. Eventually it will fail, period. So we cannot ignore it. In the future, these mechanical items will cost more in the future than they do right now, and it will have a significant impact on the day-to-day operation of the school should it fail at an inappropriate time during the course of the school year, such as wintertime. And one last critical note here, should the town not receive the grant, the project will not move forward. So that concludes the HVAC portion. Just write your questions down and we will capture them after the third presentation. Bryce, you want to hit number 2 for me, please, the security. All right, let's tackle the entrances and security project. You know who I am. All right, so I just want to make this opening statement real quick on. So this deals with the perimeter entrances of the job. This is an enhancement project to the existing entrances, okay? Special notes, we are unable to talk specific about the entrances because it deals with school security, and I think everyone can recognize that. I also just want to note when we do discuss this in the building committee, we go under what we call executive session, and all of those minutes are not for the public. I don't mean to make this a very boring presentation, but it has to be a little bit of a boring presentation overall. But Rest assured, I just want to open up with this first statement here. Proper security and safety measures and practices are currently in place for this school, period. Okay, I don't want anyone judging whether or not the school is safe or not. It is, okay? But given the unfortunate world events, regular evaluation of those entrances and the overall security is required not only by our school, but all schools, okay? Students and staff and visitors should always feel safe in the environment that they're working in or being educated in, and making sure that we're doing our due diligence. And that due diligence is to aim for a better or higher level of security overall for our school campus. We do monitor and work very closely with other Connecticut schools. There's constant evaluation and talking going amongst one another, and we do work with the federal government, Homeland Security. We're just always reviewing and implementing better safety measures and plans on a yearly basis as well, if not maybe even monthly or whatever the times calls, but it's definitely yearly. And the Board of Education has documented their support for enhancing the overall entrances to the school. And again, why now? Well, security and safety are always a top priority, right? It just generally makes sense. Over the past 10 years, we've had previous security jobs, and over that period of 10 years, completing those projects, we've had a very high level of grant funding for those, about 70%, hovering around 70%, right, Bill? Something along those lines. So though we don't have a grant just yet, given our continued research with the other schools, we believe that a grant is imminent, and we just want to make sure that we're ready to go, and that the world climate just makes sense to be evaluating these entrances and making them a little bit more secure. So moving forward, the Thompson Building Committee has evaluated the existing entrances overall. We did vote to have a third-party consultant come in and complete its own evaluation. This will maximize the scope of work while keeping costs at a limited to the best of our abilities. We have had specialty subcontractors that I work with on a daily basis come give evaluation and some price proposals just to make sure that we're aligning the budget. And obviously, we're looking at about a $500,000 budget to complete that. And our mill rate impacts, again, a very conservative estimate is 3 cents, 1 cent for the interest payments, and then the principal payments kick in at 9 cents. So again, same calculation on the bottom end, home value 225, 70% value, assessed value, and then it's $14.18 per year. So again, just capture your questions. I'll answer them at the end. So slide 3, get onto the track. All right, the track. I just want to open up with, again, I'm a resident of Thompson. I'm very active with either coaching basketball, coaching baseball, deeply committed to this town and various boards and commissions. I think Thompson has great opportunity to make this town great with a little help from its community in support of things. As a contractor and as a father, I walk around our community and I do see a lot of blighted landscapes and deteriorated structures. And for me, I think about my children and what that means. What perception are we sending? What perception are we sending to the community in the surrounding areas? Do we find it acceptable to have deteriorated landscapes? Our children walk by these buildings. And most importantly, they're town-owned structures, period. And that just means I don't like the perception that we're sending to our children on that. It is not okay. And I'm speaking to you as a fellow resident. Given the track history, working very closely with our friend Deb Spinelli. 1986 to 87 was constructed. It was decommissioned in 2003 to 2007. So it did have an overall lifespan of 17 years. Observations, it once was a very vibrant and active track, one that the community actually took a lot of pride in, and one that students and staff enjoyed for many, many years. I noted over here, we were QVC champions, girls track in '92, and my wife, Heather Santos, was a part of that. She's here tonight. Its current status, well, for the past 19 years, it's been decommissioned, and it's in advanced disrepair. The effects on the school district were unable to utilize the facility for physical education and interscholastic meets. So I just want to put it in perspective on this. We're not allowed to have home meets. So what do? We spend money on busing the 40 kids that want to run track to another facility. So we pay for a bus and gas to get to that facility. I want to keep that in your minds as we move forward. The track condition was also cited last in the New England Association of Schools and Colleges report for needing improvement, and it could affect our accreditation. Whoop, fat fingers. Community impact, the town as a whole, we're leaving the town without a safe and operational track, and it is basically a liability for us overall. And I think most importantly, because I have my two children, its impacts on the students are grand, all right? There's a loss of team spirit, school pride, loss of interscholastic home meets, the loss of a basic school athletic function, and loss of community engagement. What I mean by community engagement is when we don't have a home meet, we can't go cheer on our own teams. There's no community engagement. They have to go somewhere else. People are not going to these other facilities. We should have that school pride right here in our own town. You know, and speaking with some of the track kids, the track has become, I'm sorry, it has become a joke. This particular hole right here, they have labeled the Grand Canyon. Okay? I'm serious. The kids practice on this facility, and they cannot use the cleats that they use on the meets because they'll ruin their cleats. Existing track conditions where the track surfacing has exceeded its lifespan, obviously. The cross-section is worn down below acceptable depths. There's obviously all kinds of linear cracking, and reconstruction is necessary. Good thing that is happening that I noticed walking around the track, there's not a lot of heaving. So that means that the subsurface conditions are rather good, and I will get to that in a little while. Ponding areas where water stays trapped on the track is also just expediting that deterioration. And another good note is the natural turf field for the soccer field actually is in very good condition, and it is properly graded, and watershed is happening appropriately there. When it comes to other compliance issues, I'll speed through this one. There's not adequate width on this particular side here on both ends of the track. You're supposed to have 6 inches to prevent tripping. But again, our kids are using this as a practice facility. There's no separation for spectators. The long jump and triple jump, the runway is too narrow. You cannot have 2 events going at the same time, and there's no pole vault event. So the town did recognize that as a town-owned facility. Amy and the select men and women put together and said we're going to approve a portion of the ARPA funding, develop the overall engineering site plan with the goal of eventually funding a full reconstruction. So we did go out, we did hire an engineer, and those plans are now 100% ready to go. The specifications are done, the plans are done. I'm going to go through a few of the plans tonight. All we have to do is update the specification for bid times and move forward with the scope of work. When it comes to budget and financial picture, the overall budget is $1.5 million. That estimate was done by Ty and Bond and reviewed by the building committee. Again, putting in various construction and estimating contingencies. Given the market conditions, I did go out and get specialty track vendors that I'm familiar with. They gave us some estimates, so we make sure that we are asking for the right amount of money here. And then we did work with Deb on creating an allowance for new track and field event equipment. Again, the overall bill rate impact, conservative estimate is 8 cents, 4 cents for interest payments, principal payments at 28 cents, then they go down to 27 cents. So again, all the same calculation, $42.53 per year. I'm just going to bring back up the bus transporting our kids, spending money to get them at another facility. Are we spending more than $42.53 a year? Okay, let me just grab a quick thing of water here. All right, if we're going to spend $1.5 million on a new track, I want to make sure darn well that the subsurface conditions are good, because we're going to reuse the existing drainage system and the soil conditions there. So we're going to do our due diligence. We did complete an existing conditions survey of the existing drainage system. We did complete a video investigation. It is a thrilling experience for those that have looked at video of piping. Okay, and if you want that, we can provide that. All necessary surveys were completed and confirmed in the existing infrastructure to be sound working order, and all of that data was utilized for the new track design, and I will get to some specifics on that a little later. Also, we did confirm that the subsoil conditions, the geotech study, that the subsurface materials were rather good and could be sound and supportive of our new track. So what are the proposed improvement summary? Well, we're going to reconstruct to a six-lane track with a 6-lane chute, expand and create the new D areas, and I will get to that, separate the spectators from the competition, provide conduits, various other things for future lighting and speaker systems. And we are asking for an alternate add to the overall scope to put in a curb for a possible future synthetic turf field, but we're not considering that right now, just to be clear. Excuse me. Value engineering, we're not doing the synthetic turf. There's no athletic lights, there's no bleachers included, and we're not doing an 8-lane chute. And I will get to that in a minute. So design overall on the west side of facility. This is the portion of the track that is nearest the parking lot in the school. So there's a 6-lane, they call chute right here. We were going to make it 8 lanes, but it was encroaching on the swale here, and the grade actually goes down quite a bit. So it would require retaining walls on both sides of the track, so we just eliminated that because it was just costing too much money. We did expand on the bleacher area here, and we also added a bleacher section here because of the finish line, so everyone could sit down and cheer on their kids. We did add, like I said, some empty conduits here for future lighting or speaker capability. We do not currently have that. On the east side, more of the same. It's a 6-lane track. On the north side is the long jump. This is what they call a D area. Looks like a D. The south side, we have our pole vault, high jump, and another D area. We did put a rain garden in here, not to get too into the weeds here, but we put a rain garden here because of the creation of the D areas. There's more impervious surface, so we needed somewhere for that water to go. So let's talk a little bit about the new track system overall. It's a plexi track accelerator or similar. I say similar because we cannot just say we want plexi track in public bidding. You have to say similar. but these are the standards that we're going to be holding to. That's a premium acrylic sandwich system for middle school and high school running tracks. It is a full depth color system, so as it wears down, it still looks brand new, okay? I think it's important to walk through maintenance. No offense to anyone that was here with the previous track, but the only reason that track only lasted 17 years is because proper maintenance was not done, okay? Somebody's taxpayers paid for that. So I just want to make it known real quick on maintenance. Is a 5-year manufacturer warranty, and I'm telling you, it needs to be restriped probably about every 3 to 5 years, repairing the runways and starting blocks, recoating every 5 to 7, and then you may need additional depth every 10 to 15 years. This track should have a lifespan of 20 to 30 years. I talked a little bit about the drainage. So along the new track will be this ACO drain, and that is all connected to the existing systems. I talked a little bit about the D areas and the rain garden system, and that water is collected and it goes through this filter system, hydrodynamic separator system. It just removes the silt from the water. We'll get into the details of that. Let's just talk some national averages real quick about track use. So about 57% of high school students played at least one school or community sports team over this period of time. The national average is 57.4 engagement on a sports team. In Thompson, I did look back to 2005. 56% of our kids played in an organized team sport. 2010, 56. 2015, 74%. And in 2022, 82% of our kids played in an athletic, organized sport. I think that speaks volumes. Overall, nationally, track is the number one sport. Number one. Boys, it's the number 2 sport, with football being number 1. This simply proves to me that if you provide the means to athletes, they will come and they will take pride in their school and their track facility. These are just some of the data online. If anyone wants, you can go look up the National Federation of State School Association. That's where I was getting all of my data. All right, benefits. We're coming down to the end here. What's the benefits of having a new school? Well, participating in school athletics has a long-lasting, definitive benefit, right? Stronger sense of self-confidence, expands capacity for empathy for others, better understanding of self, and it really does build a foundation for lifelong fitness habits, right? Outdoor programs may have a beneficial role. It really does affect people intellectually, socially, physically, and psychologically, period. Overall, boosting engagement, I looked around to other schools and their numbers if they were to provide a new track or some sort of athletic facility. 70% of the student population went to that facility. And overall student participation in sports increased by 6%, taking our 82% before, we would be up to almost 90% participation in school athletic program. I like to use the word pride. Building pride in community through school athletics can build school pride, a sense of place and belonging that translate to participation. And an attractive and flexible track can become a community focal point where hard work and student achievement is celebrated. Like I said earlier, community engagement. People will come cheer on the kids here if we had such a facility. Reflecting core mission and values, being motivated, being committed, being honest, and being respectful. It's not just building bodies, it's about building character. With this new track, Thompson will position itself to deliver on its mission of encouraging and inspiring students to pursue excellence in all aspects of life and education. So I just want to close with 19 years it's been decommissioned, unutilized properly. Ladies and gentlemen, the town deserves a new track. The young men and women that come to this school, the students, they not only deserve a new track, they've earned a new track. Thank you very much. All right.
Do you have any questions or comments from the audience? And if you rise to speak, please identify yourself and give us your place of residence. Young lady in the back, would you like to use the microphone? Yes, you, yes.
Yeah, Justin, help her out. Is that on?
Bryce is coming back.
Number three. Number three. Oh.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Yes, hello. I'm Claudia Allen, 56 Taylor Road in the Aquatic section of Thompson. I have two questions, if that's allowed. One concerning the HVAC renovation. It sounds to me, and I don't know anything technically about this is why it's a question. It sounds like it's fueled by fossil fuel energy, is that correct?
Yeah. Scott, you want to jump in?
What is the question? Go ahead, Brian.
It's fueled by fossil fuel energy?
Yeah, oil.
Oil?
Yeah, it's oil.
Okay.
Fueled by
It's oil.
yes.
Yep. There's no gas availability at the school.
Okay. I wondered about the,
Yeah.
Just a moment, Claudia.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
The heating system is, but the electricity used in the school probably has some renewable amount in it just because of all the photovoltaic that's being installed in the area. So the electrical system is primarily fossil fuel as well, but probably a renewable
that's
cost.
better than, okay. All right, my question is, what potential is there, hopefully in the future, to transition to renewable energy? Is this system compatible with such a transition?
Yes, it is. So we will still rely on fuel systems, but there is a solar project, one meg system that is on our radar screen that will actually go behind the baseball field. So a 1 meg system is quite large. It's about 3 acres. And we hope to gain enough energy to produce, I'm going to say conservatively, 80% that would be given to the school.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My second question is about the track. And you mentioned the maintenance was the problem, that's why it only lasted 17 years. So how can we fix that? I mean, if we want it to be 20 to 30 years, how do we legally require somehow that happen?
Well, as I outlined in the presentation, there's steps of maintenance that are required. It's just part of the overall maintenance plan that we'll work with Bill on. And our current building committee is very focused on making sure that whatever we put into the school, that it lasts its lifespan that's required.
Okay, and that'll be a legal requirement somehow?
No, it's
I mean,
just be
there's no
something that we
recourse?
develop outside of the bid.
So there's really no recourse to the town, like 17 years from now if something
Yeah,
goes
no,
wrong?
so the contractor will come in, they will warranty it for a certain period of time, and then it just becomes the property of the town, and we have to create our own maintenance program. It's just like any other system in the school.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself, Mr. Brown.
My name is Donald Brown, 240 County Home Road in Thompson. I run the Cornelia School of Sports for the last 49 years in Brown shooting sports. My background before that was a 45-year representative for emergency vehicles, where I was involved with a lot of bids with municipalities and things like that. I'm concerned that I haven't heard any discussion about RFPs, bids, or bidding process on this. And I'm hearing you, Mr. Santos, stand up here as a representative of a construction company, and I'm pretty concerned about why we're getting a presentation from somebody who's going to build it without having any ideas about what competitive pricing might be. That's the first question.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Sure.
So if we're just going to talk about the track, I did go out and get specialty subcontractor pricing for that. We're not at the RFP stage. All right, so we had to come here. We have a budget put together. Let me finish. The specifications are written, and then we have to write a request for proposal, which is the next phase after.
Yeah, I understand how the system works. I don't
Okay.
understand why you're asking for, why you're establishing a price right now for us to vote on before you have the price.
Yeah, so it's not a GMP, it's a hard bid lump sum proposal. That's the way the state of Connecticut works for us, right? So I can't go get a bid and then submit it because this is not the,
The
that's not
state
the
of
process.
Connecticut has done that with emergency vehicles for years.
Yeah, for sure. Emergency, absolutely.
They've done it the way I'm saying.
Sure.
They get it, they go out to bid, then they get the money afterwards.
Sure. There's many different ways to go about it.
Well,
Mr. Santos, may I
Please.
interject? Additionally, according to the process of the grant application, there was a specific dollar amount that was entered in for that grant application.
yeah, but
Our
who pulled that
bond-
out of whose butt?
May I finish, please?
Yeah.
The bond council and going out for bonding, because we will have to take a bond out to fund this project, the bond council requires that the town approves the full amount that was asked for in that grant. And that is the only reason. If we look back to when we went out to bid for, or when we went out to referendum for the school roof project, we were looking for $4.6 million. When we went out to RFP, it came in at $2 million. There is a chance, likely, that it comes in less, but we have to ask the town to approve whatever was asked for on the grant. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's very specific for the HVAC.
Specific to the HVAC.
Well, the question on the referendum, in my opinion, doesn't say the same thing as your resolution. Your resolution, the way it's written, in the resolution, you don't have the $9 million, from the grant. You don't have the $9 million for the grant necessarily, and if you don't get it, you're not going to do the project. That's the way it's in the resolution.
Correct.
But the referendum doesn't say that.
And if I could answer that as well, according to bond counsel, tonight we are discussing the resolution. Those referendum questions are a representation of the resolution. The resolution, the legal notice, is a legally binding notice. In that legal notice, it states that if we do not receive the grant for the HVAC project, we will not move forward with that project, period. It is legally binding. If we do not receive the grant, we will not move forward with any portion of the project, and we will have to go back out to the town to ask for more money for another project,
But yet,
potentially.
But yet, you're going to go for $13.2 million for the project now, not 4.2.
We have to ask for the full amount.
Yeah, the state
Yes,
asked
you
us
do.
to do that.
And
But-
how many grants have you had promised to the town that never got delivered? Do you have any idea?
I don't know of any, sir.
There are some. I would suggest you look.
Do you know what those grants are then?
What are
Please,
they?
please name them.
I can't name them
Well,
off.
then you're providing inaccurate information and you're deceiving the people that are behind you. There are no grants that we have not received. If you can name them, then you publicly can
I
come
will
here and
get
state
you a
that.
list.
I would appreciate that, because otherwise you're deceiving the public. And I don't
I'm not deceiving
appreciate that,
anybody.
sir.
The people that are deceiving are.
No,
are
you're
some-
All right,
deceiving.
now,
Excuse
now,
me.
now,
You're
now,
deceiving.
No, remember what
Sorry.
your mother told you?
Yes, sir.
Be polite.
Thank you, sir.
Who wants the floor? Mr.
Regarding the Homeland Security, if you're working with Homeland Security on this, I hope they have a better plan than they do at the border.
Well, we're a little off the subject, but we appreciate your remarks. Mr. Brown?
And my daughter, Gabby.
Young lady?
My name is Gabriela Santos, and I live at 77 Hackstrom Road. And I am a student of the middle school here, and I run track for the middle school. And I have tripped in a hole while I was doing the 100. And there is multiple accidents that happen on the track as well. And on the announcements, when there was a option for a new track, there was multiple people in my class that got very excited for the new track. If there was going to be a new track opportunity for the new track.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. Can anyone top that? Yes, sir.
Go ahead, follow that, Justin.
I'm not topping that one, but I think there's been a
Excuse
lot.
me, could you identify
Sorry.
yourself?
Justin Young, Fairway Drive, also a member of the building committee. There's been a lot of discussion, and I've heard it behind me, I heard it before the meeting started tonight, about pulling numbers out of the blue. I'm going to use that because some of the other were not appropriate. The numbers were not pulled out of the blue for any of these projects. The building committee itself has spent several hours looking at this. HF Lens, as they stated with you, we had, for the state to award us the grant, had to hire a third-party independent estimator to give us the $13.5 million dollar value. For the track, Mr. Santos reached out to his colleagues so that we could get accurate estimates for that, as well as for the door project. He is in the industry. I consider that an industry expert. We're not awarding his company any of the contracts. I don't think your company has been awarded a contract in this town ever.
Ever.
And I don't think that is his intent on the building committee. I don't think that is his intent presenting here today. I also don't think that accusing someone of that is anywhere near appropriate.
Thank you,
So I
Judge.
just want everybody to understand that the homework has been diligently done on this project from day one. Months have been spent getting to where we are today. So to insult Brian, myself, or anybody else on this building committee that we pulled numbers out of the blue is just very hurtful, and I'd appreciate it if you keep that stuff to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone? Yes. Young lady in the front here, third row.
First of all, I would like to ask other people in the room,
May you identify yourself, please?
Sarah White, also known as Sally, 308 East Thompson Road. I think a basic tenet of civility would be for everyone in the room not to insult people who have been paying taxes in this town for 50 years and who run businesses. There was mention made of a third-party estimator. My first question is to tell us who that is and how they were identified.
Sure.
And where are they located?
Would you reintroduce yourself, sir?
Scott Granek, HF Lens. Yes, the third-party estimator is called Trophy Point,
How is that spelled?
Trophy,
Trophy Point.
Point. It is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business.
Where?
They're headquartered out of Buffalo, New York, and they have offices at West Point as well as New York City.
And how were they selected?
HF Lens selected them based on previous work experience with them. We do multiple projects at very high dollar value, and we've had continued success with the estimates that they've provided.
Was that a bidding process?
No, that was not.
Sole source,
Sole source.
because
two,
of your
because of-
affiliation with them?
Well, first and foremost was their expertise. And then second was a working relationship and having the dialogue that is needed in regards to explaining systems that are potential. These are very preliminary designs that require very close attentive detail in regards to communicating what these designs will entail, not only from a system architecture, but also from the actual equipment behind it. And there's no drawings at this level for them to really do takeoff. So it's very descriptive, and there's a working.
Was there no potential of finding a company within Connecticut or closer this side of Hartford?
Yeah, they work in Connecticut. We do.
No, I didn't say they work. I said
Yeah.
that we're located in Connecticut.
Yeah,
or this
actually,
side of the Hartford.
actually, as a side story, we were recommended from the building committee, some other ones, but we felt that as a third-party estimate, that it would be best for our firm to go with a firm that we had known that wouldn't be in regards like we've tried to note here, it wouldn't be a conflict of interest, if you will.
Yep.
I noticed when you were talking about years of schools, when you were referring to elementary schools, you referred to 1978. Why wasn't the 1960 school, which captured K through 8, mentioned, nor the addition to the elementary school that was added in the mid-60s?
Yeah, those systems have newer systems in regards to where they are in their lifespan. The 78 edition had no upgrades in regards to MEP systems on the HVAC side, and that was the portion that was included. So again, it was based on the evaluation of specific equipment in specific locations of each building. And it just so happened to be that in the high school with the renovation year, as well as middle school and the elementary, that those years correlated to when that equipment was actually last replaced.
Well, I raised that because you had given the years and then the time span or the condition of the equipment, but they were missing. So
Yeah, and again, if it wasn't specifically noted on the presentation, it was noted within our report, but that equipment was fair or better in regards to its condition and maintenance history and where it fit with in regards to an actual recommendation for upgrade.
Initially, when this segment of the program was brought up, I had understood this to be questions, but it's also comments. Will there be another comment section or both? Oh. Going back to the security, where it says, why do we need this on the explanation sheet handed out? First bullet point, we can potentially keep an intruder from ever entering the building. What about an internal threat? When I spoke with one of my security friends, the first thing they said was, external is really not that important, it's the internal threat.
Well, I don't know, Bill, if you want to help me with
left you
this, but
tapping your toes. Okay, let's move on.
Well, I'm just going to say, we're evaluating all the systems internally and externally, and any threat is something to be concerned about, right?
Can I just offer a point of opinion on that? As an engineering firm, we do correctional work, and we also design access control, CCTV. We are in those systems, and I understand what you're asking for, but in today's society with the threats that we've had, our designs start from the outside to minimize the chance of the internal threat. And it is true, it's a very valid point, that the internal threats have the opportunity to do the greatest damage. But that first action is to minimize the chance of them even getting into the school, whether it's via sally ports with a double door mechanism where they have to get into the door, that door locks behind them, another door is locked in front of them, they ring the buzzer to get in. That's where we're trying, I assume, that's where that first step is being taken in trying to improve that area. So yes, we do access controls, and we do look at internal as well as external, but you got to minimize the threat getting in first before you can ever have a chance of minimizing the internal portion.
Yeah, and Sally, I'm sorry that there's certain things we can and cannot say about the security, but all of that's being evaluated.
Well, that's another very curious thing, in that this is a public building. And I think it's unheard of to say that the public who foots the bill and who has friends, children inside, would not be privy to knowing what the security was. It's highly unusual.
Just a moment, sir. Ms. White has the floor,
And-
and when she's finished, happy to call on you.
This isn't a matter of national security. This is local public school security. So it's a different level of confidentiality, if you will. And
Okay.
I'm wondering if this relates to Homeland Security. Because it's very odd to ask us to foot a bill or to approve something when we don't know what we're paying for or what is the efficacy of it.
I'm not sure how to answer the question.
All right, I've got more. Then, let's see here. The point was made that 2 decades of students have been without a proper sporting facility. I hope people realize that the Thompson Public School System operated, at least since the building of the Turtle Up Memorial High School, for 90 years without a track, and operated well.
If you consider that to be well, that's your opinion. I disagree with you.
And in fact, I was just reading an article in the Wall Street Journal
Oh, my goodness.
where there is a world-class runner, perhaps some of you know her, Lauren Fleshman, 5-time NCAA champ.
Ms. White, I think you're getting off the subject. Can you stay to the point?
Gladly, who said that it demands little more than spikes and some grit, that running is a sport that anyone can enter into under any conditions. All you have to do is run. But moving on.
I'm going to respond with, do you think that the students here take pride in the track? I'm just going to leave it like that. Can run on dirt.
You have had a lot of opportunity to speak tonight up on the stage.
Very
This
good,
is my
Sally. Thank you.
opportunity. In terms of the amount of money that's being asked, it's staggering, absolutely staggering. And I think that part of the presentation, a big part of the presentation, it would be respectful to the taxpayers to give an overlay of the amount of debt that the town carries now, the debt service, and what this is going to mean in the out years. You had a figure of around $78 for the HVAC, around $48 for the track. There wasn't a figure for the security.
$15, $14 and change.
Okay, so we're up around $120 roughly on the average homeowner. Were those figures that came from the Director of Finance? Okay, thanks, Bill. But yet, if you look at the potential of loss of jobs, decreases, or stagnant wages, everybody's maxed out now. And I think a lot of people are just floored that you would come to the town for this amount of money to further burden the town economically, or financially, I should say. And it was also curious that in the presentation to the Board of Finance in December, that it wasn't a Board of Ed member that spoke at the meeting. This is all school-related. Yet we haven't heard one, the chairman, the vice chairman, or any member of the Board of Ed speak.
You're going to.
3 minutes, Sally.
Tom, you're speaking as a citizen. You know very well what I mean in terms
Sally,
of
I
giving a
understand.
presentation.
Oh, well, just a moment. Ms. White, have you finished with your remarks?
Usually 3 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
What is if we put this on top of our existing debt, how much debt do we have in the town now? Shall we reveal that?
Oh, I think you're getting far afield from the subject, Ms. White.
Hardly.
And there are
This is
other people
about-
waiting to speak.
This is about, how much? 14 point something? We're avoiding talking about the economic impact and the financial condition of the town, the financial condition of the taxpayers. That should be a very basic thing to speak about. The other thing is the new track at Marianapolis, which First Selectman had made mention in December that, to paraphrase, it's distressing to drive by there and see this nice new track, and Thompson Public School System doesn't have one. roughly.
Ms. White, could you be
So-
more clear in your remarks and please relate them to this subject tonight? I don't think we're here to talk about the Marianapolis track.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see the
I'm
connection.
making comments in relation to the potential of replacing this track when there is a new track in town that was put together with private money. The first selectman made mention in trying to make a case for the track that a private school has when the public school doesn't have one that's functional. So why don't we look at potentially having some type of sharing or some arrangement with them? It can be, they don't have to run there all the time. They can use it to be acquainted with running on a track. There's plenty of other places.
It's probably a
use.
question that should be addressed to a member of the Board of Education. I see one here. Mr. Angelo, would you care to respond?
Thank you. Tom Angelo, 640 Fabian Road, Board of Education member, president of the Turtle Art Trust, as well as a member of the building committee. First, I'd like to say I respect everyone's opinions. We are very honored and privileged to have a gentleman as Brian Santos in our town. One, as one of the largest municipal building organizations in this area that builds municipalities, school systems, etc. To have him on our Board of Building Committee.
Tom, can we get back to the subject?
Please,
This
please,
is
do
the
not
subject,
please,
Sally.
do not
I
do
respect
not
everything that
interrupt.
you say, and I'm
Excuse
actually
me.
going to,
Tom,
I'm going to give her a
excuse me.
compliment.
Excuse me. Ms. White, we gave you plenty of opportunity to speak, and now Mr. Angelo has the floor. So please be respectful to him as he was to you.
I just want to say,
Please proceed.
Sally, I'm going to correct you on one thing. The 1909 building actually does have a track. It's in the basement, which my father played multiple years, being 3 state champions, 49, 50, and 51. And I'm going to tell you, you go up and you look in the trophy case, there's a pair of sneakers. That pair of sneakers my father wore from 7th grade until 12th grade. I do not ever want to see one of our students suffer the way that our past generations at this school did with conditions that they played in. They played in a basement. They played over at the KFC. They had to walk to the KFC or whatever in every weather condition. I will do everything I can possible to make sure that our students have, one, a professional, safe learning environment as well as the right facilities to compete. The second thing that I want to say is this entire committee, whether it's the building committee, selectmen, the Board of Education, whatever, hours and hours and hours of volunteer time. We do not just pick numbers out of the hat. Please come to the meetings or read the minutes. The third thing, we are not going to talk security measures in an open setting. That is like asking an airport. That is like asking an airport to say exactly what measures they do behind the scenes. There's many things that go on here that nobody knows, except for the Board of Education, the Selectmen, and the Building Committee, and it should stay that way.
Are there any other members of the Board of Education who would like the floor?
Hold on, I'd like to...
No, not hold on. You've addressed the question to the Board of Education. We're going to get an answer for you. Here is the chairman of the board, I think, is asking permission to speak.
You want to share?
Sure.
My name is Kathleen Herbert. I live at 122 Wilsonville Road. I am chairman of the Board of Education, but I think I'm going to speak as a private citizen right now. These are projects which enhance the school, but they are not Board of Education projects. They were specifically given by the Board of Select Persons to the Building Committee. It was the Building Committee's responsibility to investigate these projects and to develop the projects to hand over to back to the Board of Selectmen to be voted on, to be discussed at this special meeting, and then to be voted on at referendum. The Board of Education was not directly involved in these projects, although I want to speak to these projects. The HVAC project, we all saw in this presentation, we're just going to end up paying for this piecemeal. If we can qualify for the grant, these things are at end of life. We've already bought 2 new boilers because they failed. And the schools were freezing for 2 weeks. So you're going to end up paying for this, whether you pay for it over 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. We have an opportunity for the grant now. Why not put in a total system that runs together that's more efficient than paying for things piecemeal, which we tend to do in this town? We wait till something dies, and then we're scrambling to fix it. The other thing is that the security project, Tom is right, we can't discuss that in public. I mean, that's just common sense. But I want to speak to the track. We're starting, and it's in our budget this year, to prepare for another NEASC accreditation for our high school study again. It was mentioned in our last NEASC accreditation study that we need to fix the track, and it hasn't been done yet. We have addressed it. We've started to address it. We're in danger of losing accreditation for our high school. What does that mean? That's a very perilous thing to happen to us. That has severe, serious ramifications for our high school. One of them is that we may not be eligible for federal or state funding if we lose accreditation. That's serious. We rely on that federal and state funding. Another thing is that our diplomas that we issue may not be recognized by colleges. So our students may not be able to go to colleges that they want to go to. And if they are accepted, they'll end up taking remedial courses for the first semester or the first year. Well, how would you like your student or your child to have to take most of their senior courses over again? That will cost you money because they may be ineligible for scholarship funds until they take those remedial courses. We need to keep this high school accredited. In 19 years without a track, Sally, I'm sorry, but, you know, busing our kids to Mariannapolis, that costs money. Mary Annapolis is a private school. They get their money through tuition. We get our money from state and federal and from federal funding. We get our money from, yes, the taxpayers. We are a community. We should be funding this school. And we failed year after year after year to fund this school adequately. We end up going back the last 2 years to the Board of Finance because we cannot fund this school adequately. So it is the taxpayers' responsibility. It is all of the taxpayers' responsibility to fund the school adequately. And having a track after, I remember when I first got on the board that it was been on the wish list. And that was, I've been on the board for 11 plus years. It's been on the wish list. It was $650,000 then to fix the track. It's going to be, in 11 years, it's more than doubled now to fix that track. When are we ever going to do it? We just keep pushing it aside, pushing it aside. We need the track. And the most important thing is if we failed this NEAS that's coming up in 2 years, we'd be in serious trouble. More serious than you think, Sally, for our children. Thank you.
Could someone please tell me what the acronym NEASC is?
What is the question, Ms. White?
New
What
England
does the
Association of
acronyms-
Schools and Colleges.
And one of their requirements is that a school have an outdoor track in order to be accredited?
There's all kinds of stats, right? There's a number of factors. Yeah.
I'd be interested to know if that is a requirement of them to have an outdoor track.
It's just been cited.
And my sense is, if we're a community, we used to work with St. Joe's and Turtle Lot, work back and forth together, helping one another. It seems like perhaps we could consider working back and forth as a community with Mary Annapolis. And I wonder if everyone in the auditorium realizes that my understanding is, correct me if I'm off a little bit or whatever, is that the school is behind in this year's budget by around $250,000. Is that correct?
I think that's away from the subject of this meeting, Ms. White. We're not here to discuss the school's budget. We're here to discuss these appropriation requests.
Well, the taxpayers need to make fully informed decisions, and they need information about the condition of the financial situation with the town and the school. We keep saying that this is not a project of the school board, who we elected to oversee and run the schools and handle the budgets. And yet we've got this massive project, and it's only the responsibility of a committee.
Well, perhaps someone in the back can address that issue. Woman in the red,
Yeah, really.
Sally, can you wind it up, please?
Be done with it.
Thank you for your remarks. Ms. Pengiesic? Certainly.
My name is Jillian Noley. I live at 198 Ravenel Road. I want to thank you all for your presentation. It was really in-depth, and the people that appreciate you are clapping. So I want to thank you for that. I have 2 little children that will be going through the school, so I want them to be proudful of the school too. If you don't like it, move. Thank you.
Ms. Pengiesic, would you like the floor?
Thank you.
Would you please identify yourself?
Happy to do so, sir. Tira Pengesic, I live on Blaine Road, but I'm actually just going to speak in my capacity as the Director of Planning and Development. For the benefit of people who may still be confused about how the RFP process came up, because there was some back and forth, and I just want to give a single example on how that does in fact work. So just for those who don't know, I do a lot of grant writing for the town. In the last 4 years, I've been awarded roughly $5 million on behalf of the town, which is, not for that, I don't need that, just so you have some idea of the context. So one of those grants is nearing its conclusion, which is the sidewalks out front. That was under a grant called LOTSIP, also administered by the state. In order to apply for a LOTSIP grant, you have an estimate drawn up by, in this case, a civil engineer. The estimate is always the highest amount that it could possibly be, because you want to be mindful of any inflationary pressures, contingencies, unforeseen circumstances. Our initial engineer's estimate for the sidewalk project, which is what the state would have awarded to us in full, was $2.1 million. We went out to bid. The contractor came back that we selected with an estimate of $1.8 something million. Therefore, the state adjusted the amount that they would award. So that is why you essentially apply high, and then sometimes you get a shorter amount back. So and that's not something that the average person would know or run into, and because there was some back and forth, I just wanted to give a real-world example of how that grant RFP award process can in fact work. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, you're up.
Deb Spinelli, talking about regarding the track. First of all, the kids have not had a home meet in probably 25 years. We are running in 2 lanes because the kids know which 2 lanes are safe to run in. We stop them from running others because of the crevices and other cracks that are in the track. So we make sure they're staying in the 2 lanes that we know are going to be safe enough for them to participate. And as far as going with Marianapolis, when we asked to use the track last year one time, it took me going back and forth with Mr. DeChico over there at least 3 weeks before we finally got a date. We had one date that we could use for a one home meet that we had. In addition to that, they have their own track practices, and they use that inside of that track as a lacrosse area. So they've got practices and games going on. So for you to, Sally, say to the town that we can go and use Marianapolis' track, the facility will use the track, which they dumped a lot of money in, to the best of their ability for their students, not ours, and we're an afterthought. We got one meet there last year, and I had to probably, well, it was back and forth. I was begging him so we could have our own home meet. So the kids deserve a chance to run on their own track and also sponsor our own home meets. If anybody has any questions about numbers of kids, I'll be glad to answer that.
Woman in the back has the floor. Ma'am? And please identify yourself.
Valentine I. Martino, 573 Riverside. I'm also on the Board of Ed. I'm going to talk as Board of Ed as well as a community member. So Sally, I know your family's been in this area for a long time. So has mine. My new grandson is the 7th generation to this area. So if you want to talk about community, I'm representative of what the results of my community did for me as a kid growing up in the Greek village of North Groenlanddale. I started my education here, and many know that my mom, Mrs. Houle, served 25 years here in the school system.
Ms. Yamartino, you're a little off the subject, if I may say so.
I just want to say, as a Board of Ed member, it's very difficult to understand what's going on unless you're in it. I can tell you, I'm in my 6th year, the end of my 6th year. I have seen so many things I didn't know occurred within a school system. It is not easy. The day-to-day challenges that these people have at this school is phenomenal. And I can tell you, Sally, sports is what saves some kids. So not having a track for over 19 years is a big to-do. I just want to say that as a member of the Board of Ed, I would invite you to come and volunteer in the school. Come and see what really goes on. Volunteer in the reading program in kindergarten. Do something. But when you're on the outside, it's very hard unless you have a true connection within the inside to see what these people go through day to day, what they're trying to do. Did you know this school, where's Bill? How many doors, Bill? 82? 72 doors that this school has. Did anybody realize that? 72 doors that our school has to be covered. That's exterior, correct. Okay, so I invite anybody that wants to really know what goes on, come and volunteer. Come and see what goes on. And secondly, the 1909 building, the town never paid for. That was gifted by the Turtleots. We've had a mentality in our area not to put money into education because, first of all, the 1909 building was gifted. We didn't pay a dime for it. So we can't have that type of mentality anymore. We've got to invest in our kids. We're in a changing world. It's not like when you went to school or I went to school. It's very different. And the challenges the kids and teachers and staff face today is so great that you just don't know it unless you're in it. So I invite everybody, invest in your kids' education. They're our future, and they're the ones that are going to stay here. There's many in this audience, generationally, they have been here. Their families have been here. Why? Because it is a good community. Let's keep it that way, and let's give our kids the best education we can. I get it about funding, but where there's a will, there's a way. We have to work together to provide the best education, the safety of our kids, because otherwise they're already up against challenges that they're facing that we never would have faced. So please, invest in education, do the best that you can for your town, and come and show your support. Show the support to the kids. Deb Spinelli has worked without that track for a lot of years. That's very difficult for kids, and really, sports saves kids. Thank you.
No, don't, George.
Mr. O'Neill?
The student.
Please make your remarks brief because this young lady's waiting to speak.
Well, let her go because I have a comment or two.
Okay.
Go for it.
Young lady, you're up.
152 Sunset Hill Road.
I didn't catch your name, ma'am.
Melanie Noonan, 152 Sunset Hill Road.
Thank you.
I'm currently a junior here at Turtleot, and I'm on my 4th season of indoor and outdoor track. And there's a spot of the track we call the Great Grand Canyon because I have sprained my ankle twice on the track. I've been a victim of shin splints on the track where you physically cannot walk or run because it hurts too much. Sorry.
Good job, Melanie.
I just don't want to go unnoticed. Sorry, I just feel really passionate about track, but
Good job, Melanie.
my freshman year, I had to run with double sprained ankles from my own track. Sorry, just sports are so big and they're preached at this school, but then we're just gonna turn a blind eye to the one sport. There's like 35 kids on the team. In outdoor season, that's our biggest team we have all year. And we shouldn't turn a blind eye to like half of the athletes because there's 35 of us on a team and we deserve to be heard and we deserve to have the right equipment just like every other sport.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, Mr. O'Neill, we'll take those brief remarks now.
Yes, thank you. George O'Neill, 122 Fabian Road, North Grosvenor-Dale. I'm speaking as a citizen and in no other capacity. First, I want to comment on the excellent presentation, Brian, and your consultants.
Thank you, George.
It was thorough. I think it would have been, helpful, if it came at a different time, but it was very thorough. One question that really underlies this, and we look at the numbers, 13.2 million for the HVAC, which I get that. It's hard to argue that it's not needed. I mean, you have to maintain your infrastructure. Perhaps there's another question that I'm going to comment on later, okay, on that subject. Second is I want to know what the fully loaded cost is. So 13.2, you've got a 70, or let's say 68 point whatever, 70% potential grant. So that leaves the balance that has to be financed, plus the other $2 million, which are not likely, may or may not be funded. So what's your fully loaded cost for this over a 20-year lifespan?
Fully loaded cost, are you?
Debt service, including the direct cost.
So including maintenance and a few of the
No,
other things?
if you take out, if you issue a bond, you have to pay interest to the bondholders. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to get anyone to buy them, right? So a bond is an IOU, right? It's an IOU. It says, you give me X amount of money, and I'll give you a payment over time. So what the town is going says, we want to issue a bond for some amount, and we're going to pay interest on that. I'm just, so that would be the cost that we're borrowing or taking, plus the interest amount over time, so we have to pay the principal and the interest. What's the fully loaded cost of the 13.2 less the grant, if you receive it, plus the $2 million, which may or may not have grants, but let's just call it $2 million.
I'm going to turn the bill on that one.
Bill Steglitz, 101 Spicer Road, Finance Director for the town and the school. To answer your question, and these numbers are preliminary, but we've run a number of scenarios.
Good, yeah.
To get to the heart of your question, the fully loaded cost for all three projects, the principal is $6.2 million, which reflects the $9 million of reimbursement. Because as a reminder, the HVAC project wouldn't proceed unless that grant was awarded. The interest on that over the course of 20 years is approximately $3.8 million. So your fully loaded cost on all three projects is approximately just under $10 million.
All right, so no matter what we get for grants, it's going to cost $10 million for these three projects, all right?
If we were to get the grant.
If we got the grants. If we didn't get the grant, obviously you'd have a lot more. I get that. I just want to get a feeling for it because we focus on $13 million. We're going to get a grant. It's going to be 9. It's going to be lower. But the real cost is $10 million, right? We've got, what, 900 students or thereabouts in the school. All right, that was one of the questions. Maybe in this process, I want to understand best, we hear about the school, and it's important. I think the athletic thing is very important. I mean, everyone needs a track. I can't imagine how we got to this point after almost 20 years not maintaining it. It sounds like negligence, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Or perhaps fiscal irresponsibility, or poor planning, or the lack of any diligent financial capacity. How would you get to that point? Never mind the school. I mean, I'm in the commercial real estate business. A building, if you own a building and you have billions of dollars worth of buildings, you have a capital expenditure and you allocate it because you know the roof is going to wear out. You know the HVAC has an expected useful life, EULA, all these items. I mean, the question is, how do we get that? Now, this could be a rhetorical question. I see the Board of Selectmen staring at me, so yeah, maybe it's, some of the responsibility rests here. It's not you, it's the decades of people that came before you that, how do I say it? I guess you already know the answer, right? They didn't do what they were supposed to do, and here we are. But the idea of we find ourselves here today looking at a $10 million, no matter what, cost, which is a crisis, we're rushing to judgment, rushing to make a decision, is something that is perhaps a little beyond our issue, but it isn't, right? Because it's the cost. So it comes down to me to say, where is the Board of Finance in this, and what do they have to say about this proposal? So that's my second question.
I understand they've already voted it forward. I think they've stated their position.
Okay, excellent point, Mr. McGarry. So I did listen to the December 21st Board of Finance meeting, and in my opinion, every single one of them did not agree with this proposal. And let me quote some of the Board of Finance people, right? Let me just go. Feels rushed, not enough substance. Would want a lot of more information before they made that decision. Only approve so that the public, put it to the public and let the public decide. My favorite, no way can we afford this. Now, the Board of Finance are really good people and they're really smart. And that's what they do is finance all day. So how can we prevent them being put in a spot where they have really no choice but to say, and if you listen to it, an hour and a half comment, they said, there's no way that we could really do this and they basically hung their heads and said, okay, we'll let it go to the public. I couldn't hear one affirmative, positive, like Brian's comments.
It's an interesting philosophical discussion. However, the vote was in favor of approving this project. May I ask, Mr. Mann, did not the Board of Finance
With the exception of Mr. Mann, who voted against it.
So the vote was, Mr. Mann, do you recall what the vote was?
They did vote for it. I voted against the HVAC, and I voted against the track.
And the majority voted the other way? I hope that answers your question. Mr. O'Neill, the Finance Board voted
They voted to advance it to this position. They didn't give any convincing affirmative
the
recommendation.
convincing affirmative stuff comes at the referendum.
Right, so let's hopefully in the future, and certainly Mr. Santos and others have a real positive spin on this, and it's needed. There's no way around it. But let's not find ourselves in this position again. This is my comment. I challenge each and every one of those people that call themselves selectmen, don't let this happen. Put aside funds so that we wouldn't have to put it to the Board of Finance. You go back, everyone in this room should listen to that hour and a half meeting. They practically crawled into the table not to say anything. They finally sheepishly agreed to it. You shouldn't put them in that spot. You shouldn't have Mr. Santos up here using the Board of Ed. I mean, great for the Board of Ed and great for the building committee. And certainly Mr. Santos has extensive experience, and I'm not questioning that. Absolutely not, sir. Absolutely not, sir. You in fact are.
Mr. Herbert, you are out.
He's out of order, Mr.
Mr. Herbert, you're out of order, please. Mr. O'Neill, have you concluded your remarks?
Just about.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I encourage every citizen here to listen to that board and also Mr. Herbert's comments, because I'm characterizing based on my opinion of what you said, and in many cases you did not fully support a lot of this because you didn't have the information. But let that stay there. So at the end of the day, don't let it happen again. We shouldn't be here looking at a $10 million cost no matter what due to the fact of, let's call it negligence, incompetence, or poor planning, or all the above. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Santos, you want the floor?
Just real quick. Thank you, George, for the comments. Just real quick on committees and boards. All of that information is always publicly available, okay? So I've always stressed to selectmen and women that we need more engagement by our committees and boards. I don't want people often on another island, such as you're making it right now, that they feel rushed to make a decision. It's public information. They could come to our building committee at any time and listen. And just for the record, now that I've heard about that and that there's misinformation, I'm now going to come to the Board of Finance meetings just to make sure that things are on the same page. Because I'm tired of hearing about things are rushed. It's just not the right perception. These are available meetings to everyone.
Gentleman here has been waiting to speak.
Thank you all. Thank you guys for putting this on. I don't have much to say. My name's James Clark.
Please identify yourself
I
for
am.
the benefit of the audience.
I am.
Thank you.
My name's James Clark. I live at 113 Labby Road, North Rosendale, Connecticut. So I don't have much to say. I did have a couple questions. One of them ended up being asked by George O'Neill. Thank you. But just a couple questions I had regarding all this. First of all, I'm assuming that these three proposals, when they're sent to referendum, there'll be 3 questions regarding each one. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Secondly, as for the security, as I'm reading it here, I think a lady did bring up the amount of doors. I guess my question was, does this fit for all? I think she said 72 exterior
I heard the number,
doors.
72 exterior doors.
Again, I don't want to talk specific, but I will answer this one. 68 doors are being evaluated. There's 4 in the atrium space, courtyard area, but that's all I'm
Okay.
going to say.
Yeah, and the question I also had about George O'Neill with the total cost after everything's said and done, so 10 million. So I guess I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on a lot of this stuff. I don't have too much of an opinion on it, but I did want to ask this, and I did have like 3 other questions, but I'll be honest, I'm so tired, I forgot a lot of them. I forgot those 3. But see if I can think real quick. As for the grants, what was the projected grant amount that we're talking? Is it like a concrete grant that we're looking for? Can I ask a question for that? Who can I ask?
I think Mr. Steglitz would speak to that question.
Got it. Okay. If that's a possibility, could that set the question aside and, a reevaluation of that would also be brought up to the town?
Not at this time. I'll answer. I don't think so. Go ahead.
No? Okay. As for the HVAC, what is the expected life expectancy of these systems? Do we have like a brand that they're potentially going with that has a life expectancy? Anyone can answer that?
You want to answer that, Paul?
Did everyone hear the answer? The question is, how long will the HVAC system be expected to last? That was your question? Your answer is 30 years? Okay. Good.
And that's based on, obviously, today's technology and how they're made. As you said, they're not quite made the same as they used to be, being not as durable and not as good as they used to be. Yeah. So then I guess that brings me to the next question, because my thought sitting down there was, well, I'm assuming that these systems are probably not as good as they used to be made, so I was assuming that there's going to be a lot of maintenance in, like, say, the next 30 years. Is there a pot being put aside for that to maintain?
Go ahead, Paul.
So it can detect a problem before it starts. All right, so that still brings up to the topic of possibly how the town can set aside as like to go along with what George was talking about, so we don't get in another snag in the future, that we have something set up to, if there's a need in place, that there could be like an emergency fund or something for maintenance in the future. Just an idea, I don't know, but it might be something to look into. But that's all I have until I can actually look at everything, listen to some meetings I'm going to. I really can't have much to say. I've been working 78 hours this week, so I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Ma'am, sorry I didn't see you earlier.
Karen Durlack, 94 Tuft Hill Road, North Grovenordale. I just have I also want to say thank you, great presentation.
Thank you.
The numbers blew me away, but I know a little more now what's going on. So just a couple of points of information. If item number 1 doesn't pass, it doesn't happen if we don't get the grant. Item number 2, if we vote yes, it happens regardless of whether a grant comes or not. Yes? Okay. And then on the track, the maintenance that was mentioned every 3 to 5 years would be internal, or somebody from outside would have to come in, and is that going to be budgeted as part of the school budget or part of the general fund? How is that going to be paid for?
I'll leave that to you, Amy.
I think that'll be determined. I hope that in future years, that wise decisions are made, and it's continued to be added to the budget.
The school budget or the?
School budget, again, it would be up to potentially the Board of Finance.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll add on
I
to
mean,
that,
I
too.
believe it's a town facility that the school uses. It's on town property, just like the buildings.
I'll just add on to that real quick, speaking for the building committee, that this building committee is totally dedicated and committed to making sure that proper maintenance happens in the future, that we don't repeat what happened previously. We will set what we believe is the budget, and then we will just have to work with the town and the school to come up with a compromise. But all those things are on our radar.
Okay, but there will be an ongoing budgeted item.
There should
For
be,
that.
yeah. There will be discussion around budgeted items, absolutely.
Okay, and I just have one more clarification. On the HVAC system, you talked about the ones that are okay and the ones that definitely need replacing. All the replacement stuff is compatible with the stuff that is okay?
The answer is yes, but I'll let Paul talk.
Okay, so we're not looking about in a few years having to replace all the okay
No,
stuff?
we're avoiding that, yeah.
Okay.
Control systems for the equipment and everything. They're set up to be modular in design. They can be added on to over time. They can be replaced and upgraded. A lot of the inner workings are done by software as opposed to hardware, which is what's used in pneumatics. It's all hardware with no programming in it. So it's a lot more maintainable for the future. That's the idea, putting a backbone to build it and have it modifiable and upgradable in an easy format.
Okay, and I have one more, just throw it out question, is, from my understanding, the school is underutilized now because we don't have the population that was predicted when this huge building was built. And so I'm just asking, we do all these repairs, where does that go in the future if the population of the student body keeps going down and we've invested this $10 million debt? So I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
Gentleman here waiting to speak.
Thank you, Frank. Jeff Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. It's kind of a comment to Mr. O'Neill. You mentioned negligence. Every vote that gets voted down is negligence in the end. So in the end, every townsmember that voted every referendum down is being negligent of what's going on in this area. Thank you.
Ma'am, you waiting to speak?
Valerie Clark, 105 Elm Road. Two things. One is a comment, the other is a question. The comment is that I heard people talking about building character, and then I heard a story about a gentleman who ran track in the same sneakers for 4 years. And I want to say that adversity builds character. Adversity allows us the very important character trait of resilience, and through resilience, one is able to be bolder and more level-headed. One's character is strengthened, and one is able to move on from very painful circumstances. I think all of us can cite examples of adversity that have built character. So I don't think that character is a question that we're voting on. So my next question is one that came up, I was hoping was going to be answered. I believe Mr. Santos was the one that actually asked the question and then didn't give the detail on it. We're hearing that there's ongoing maintenance on the track and that it needs to be maintained with line painting.
Yes.
Every 5 years it has to be resurfaced, and at 20 years it'll need to be completely replaced.
Those are
I'm
evaluations.
going to be here 20 years from now.
Mhm.
So what are the costs that we're looking at over the next 20 years total?
Well, first and foremost, those are just manufacturers' dates of when you should be looking at things. Could be longer, could be shorter, so it requires the building committee to make sure that we stay on top of something like that. In the tracks that I've built previously, years ago, I would say rough estimate for a 20-year span, For maintenance, you would probably be between, let's just say on the safe side, between $40,000 and $80,000 over a 20 to 30-year lifespan to put in maintenance into the track. Go ahead, Justin.
There are lines in the school budget right now to maintain our athletic facilities. I think that was covered by refinishing of basketball courts a couple years ago. That didn't go to referendum. That's covered under the regular maintenance budget. So this would be, again, underneath that athletic facilities regular maintenance budget. I think that's the question you're trying to get answered. It should be. And it's, Brian and I have made a commitment to each other on this committee that we will make sure that it makes its way into the school's athletic facility maintenance budget. And there are members of the Board of Education here who facilitate that budget, so they're hearing the same things that we're saying right now, which is there is a budget line item right now for athletic facility maintenance. This should be in this budget.
But what I'm saying is this is a cost that is not currently budgeted at all for maintaining a track. Is that correct?
It wasn't budgeted for
And look what happened.
19 years, and obviously wasn't budgeted well for the 17 years that it was there. So the goal going forward, once we get, if the new track is approved, would be to maintain it so that we can get as long a lifespan out of it as possible.
At an additional cost. Thank you.
Just like your car.
Thank you, Valerie.
Okay. Ma'am, you're waiting to speak?
My name is Christine DeRocher. I live at 5 Fernwood Avenue in Thompson, Connecticut. I have lived in this town or worked in it for about 50 years, probably. I want to thank everybody up there. I know how hard you've worked on this and done all the research and due diligence, and I appreciate all the efforts, and you're trying to make Thompson keep up with the very fast pace of our world today. I want to tell you my experience with the track, because I was teaching in this town when part of the time we had the track. And we were very proud of that track. And a number of teachers, including myself, after school and different times, we'd go out and walk it. Not only was this a good thing for us, it's a great stress reliever, but it was a way to talk to students who were practicing out there, exercising. It was a way to set an example for our students. You're not going to get that when you go to another facility. This is our community, and we are building our community in relationships with each other when we have facilities like that that are useful to be used by our students, by our teachers, by our community. I saw community members up there too. And so for all of those reasons, I think that was a really good experience, and we were all proud of it. And when I think about the 17 years that the track lasted, that it really should have lasted maybe 30 if it had adequate maintenance. Some people seem concerned about maintenance, but we have maintenance with our cars, we have maintenance with our bicycles, we have maintenance, and we all know what happens when we do not do the maintenance. And I found out really quick with my bicycle, because I didn't want to spend the money on the year tune-up, and I ended up spending at least that on new gears, on new chain, and the kicker is, all of that time, I did not have a well-running bicycle. So maintenance is really important, it's a given, and I really appreciate the fact that our building committee our committee here wants to keep, up with that. But it's up to us as a community to make sure we do that as well. I just wanted to mention all of that, and I hope that one of the things too is anytime we invest in our assets, we had an asset there that people sacrificed for, and we, meaning in the past, we didn't maintain it adequately. So we let it go. When we defend our assets, whether they're our material possessions, our houses, our schools, our tracks, our children are our biggest asset, and when we do all we can to develop them and to protect them, we very rarely lose. It's always a benefit for not only them, but us in a strange way when we give to other people and we do something like that. There's in a community we're all together on this. We're all part of the whole. So I again want to thank you all for your work, and I hope everything goes well on this. I've already mentioned to the Board of Finance that I hope that they are just as interested in doing what is best for the community as in trying to maintain a bottom line. Because without the community, the bottom line doesn't really matter. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Wait, I would like to speak.
Oh, well, I
I'm
guess,
sorry.
I guess we're outranked.
I mean, I want to wrap it up too, but I did really have something to say that was important, and I haven't had a chance to speak yet. But I think Mr. Brissette wants to speak as well.
Mrs.
Would
St.
you like me
Ange,
to
you
go?
have the floor.
I guess I will have the floor. Thank you, Dave. So I would like to answer Mr. O'Neill's question. How can we not find ourselves in this position again? How did we get to this point? We all agree over and over that a town should be run as a business. A town is a business. Yet year after year, as a business, our fixed expenses go up. Our salaries increase because of union contractual obligations. Our health insurance increases sometimes by 18%. But we need to ignore those fixed expenses. But as a business owner, you wouldn't ignore the fixed expenses. And here's the unfortunate part. As a business owner, you're tasked with deciding to raise your prices. So on the town side, what does that equate to? Taxes. And in Thompson, we are working to bring industry in against maybe the beliefs and feelings of some people in the community, but we are working hard to bring industry here. So I digress. So that falls on the taxpayers. And yet, year after year, what does our Board of Finance do? They cut the budget in order to hit a flat mill rate. So what has happened, it's not the negligence, it's trying to appease the taxpayers, which are the customers. And in trying to appease the taxpayers, this town has fallen into disrepair, and it is an embarrassment. The track in the condition it is an embarrassment. The roads, because we don't adequately fund our roads, is an embarrassment. When your street doesn't get plowed on time, it's generally because one of the plow trucks, which is 15 years old or more, has broken down. We also operate our Public Works Department at least 2 people short because we cut them. We cut the amount of staff at the Public Works garage. Well, we didn't. The town cut, the Board of Finance cut. Made cuts that impacted all of us. Taxes are for the greater good of everybody, including schools, including school tracks, including HVAC systems. And if we're negligent and we keep voting down budgets in order to meet a flat mill rate, we're going to get the same year after year after year. It is not the negligence of any board, it's the negligence of the taxpayers for not voting yes and funding this town adequately, just as you would fund a business adequately. And that's all I have. As far as setting aside funds, to answer Ms. O'Neill's, Ms. Clark's comment, oh, let's set aside funds. Remember that come budget season. Remember that when it's time to vote on the budget, because we're going to be putting in those safeguards. We're going to be putting in those funds to make sure that these projects and these facilities can be taken care of properly. Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate you all.
Mr. Poplawski, you yielded your time. You wish to speak?
I withdraw my motion.
Accepted. Mr. Brissette.
Sean Brissette, Old Davis Road. My son graduated from Turtle Rock in 2014, and he played sports here. And one of the questions that he would ask me, because it was coming from his friends, was, how come the community doesn't care about our school? And that was very common from the kids in the older grades, high school, maybe 7th and 8th grade. And I didn't have an answer for him. I said, I don't know. I don't know why they're voting the budget down 1, 2, 3 times. That was 2014. We're almost 10 years later, and we're still dealing with the same thing every year. And so my comment is to the students and the parents here. You see what you're up against. People who were talking about how it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago and what this town was like, and we don't need a track because somebody can run in the woods. That's what you're up against. So don't leave here tonight and think, no problem, got it made. Get your friends out there, especially you seniors, 18 years old, vote. Get your friends, get your parents' friends to come out and support the school that you have, because this is what you're up against. A group of people who don't use the school, don't care about it, regardless of what they say. You heard tonight, they don't care about it. They think you should just run in the woods. And we heard from 2 students who emotionally, they're not proud of their own track. How do we do that in this town? How do we let that happen year after year after year? And then come here and blame other people's negligence instead of taking the responsibility for not voting for the budget, a proper budget. We have far more than enough parents in this school system to pass the budget on the first try every year. You just have to come out and do it. Thank you.
Young lady, you're up.
All right, so Melanie Noonan from Sunset Hill Road. Denying us a track is the equivalent of denying a basketball team a court to play on or a football team a field. Like previously mentioned, our track is too unsafe to host a meet. So why are students held accountable, and it's supposed to be acceptable for students to practice on that same track? Town residents can't even walk on the track because it's too unsafe for them. And a moralistic story about running with bad shoes is nowhere near the equivalent of running on an unsafe track. An unsafe track doesn't build character, it just causes many, many, many injuries.
Yes, sir. All right. Mike Perry, 137 Church Street. I just want to say I moved here from Milford, Mass., big sports community. I moved out here. I didn't have any kids, got married, had 4 kids. I have a 16-year-old. He's a junior here. He's going to be graduating next year. And the first thing he said is, I'm out of here, because he's not proud of this town. He walks around, he sees the town, he said it's a dump. And I tell him, son, it's a great town, it's a small community, you're going to know everybody in town. I'm big on history myself. I speak to Mr. Rice as much as I can. I talk about the old days here in town. I want to know about this town. So when I hear the elderlies, the elder people, the elders speak here, I'm proud to hear their stories. Sally, I've spoken to you when I worked down at the Packy down the street for a little while. You used to come in there once in a while for a bottle of wine. I talked about your farm and everything that surrounded it. I was proud to hear these stories. These are the stories I want our kids in this generation to keep coming home to. My kid's going to be leaving here because he's not proud of the town. There's nothing to do. These kids have nothing to do. Get them into sports. Santos said we're going to get 80% of the kids in the school system into sports, right? 80% of the kids. What are they doing now? They're walking around. They're destroying the town. And then we'll say it's the kids have nothing to do. They're destroying the town. Look at the town. They have nothing to do. They're wasting the town. They're destroying things around the town. Let them get into sports. Let them play. They'll build a sense of self-reliance, and they'll learn that life isn't always fair, because sports teaches you that. And the school here is the backbone of this town. When I moved here, I had no idea. I thought I was moving to Hazard County. Anybody remember that? But then I quickly found out as I had kids, I started learning who the parents were of all my kids' friends, and the community that really is here. But if you don't give the kids a safe school with the security system, with the air conditioning, the HVAC that they want to have, you're not going to build a quality of life for the kids. They're going to want to return and have their kids here, which only in turn come full circle for when I get older, for the people that have been paying taxes here for 50 years. They're going to want to come back. And you ask, how are these people, you're going to pay for all these things that you're asking for. You're going to be living here in 20 years. I'm still going to be alive, you say. Well, you want your kids to be paying for that. You want my kids to be paying for that. They'll come here and they'll have their kids, and they're going to pay for this. They're going to take care of everything. They're going to take care of you. If you want everybody to leave here, what's going to be left of the school, the town? The school is the backbone here. What else good could this money go to other than the school? This is it. This is the backbone of this town, the backbone of the community. This is where we all get together. The sporting events, the town, the track. This is where we all get together. Cheer our kids on. Give them something to live for and something to come home to. Because once they get out of here to school, they want to get out of here because of the town that you want, which is, it's degrading. It's getting, it's getting destroyed because you don't want to pay for this. The kids, your future is now. The kids are now going to be your future. So invest in the kids. Invest in the school. I don't know what else to do.
Young man has the floor. Please identify yourself, sir.
8 Central Street, North Gronerdale, Robert Terrell, prior alumni.
I didn't catch your name, sir.
Robert Terrell.
Thank you.
I heard someone say something about adversity. Adversity creates actually, it's a misfortune, so it's a disadvantage for students. And as a prior athlete at this school, actually going to other track events, seeing other communities come together to support those students, it always made me question, why don't we have the home events? Why don't we have our community come out and support? Sometimes that little bit of support from the community and having everyone come together for our students can create that extra boost of just motivation to get them even better. So I don't think it's something where, a disadvantage is something that's an advantage. I don't understand where you came up with that. But I think it's something where we need to come together as a town to support our students the best ways we can, to give them that extra motivation, that extra boost, and the marketing for this town. When it was shared online about, the track, you should have seen the stories about how many bruises they've had and all this, disadvantages they had on the track field and how much they wish they had community members come out. So I think that's something we should just take into consideration. All right?
Thank you. You're up, ma'am. To refresh our memories, would you please identify yourself again?
Valerie Clark, 105 Elm Road.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify my comment regarding adversity and character. And my comment was intended to say that there are many ways that character is built. It is not solely through sports. Thank you. And regarding the attribution, regarding the funding, and that we have to fund this, my question was merely how much it would cost. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Pengesic? To refresh our memories, please identify
Of course,
yourself
Mr.
again.
Moderator. Tira Pengesic, a resident at Blaine Road, but again, speaking in my capacity as an employee of the town. As we are discussing these, and again, because I write a lot of grants, I just want to provide some salient information about health results, because this was some information that I recently had to pull for an entirely unrelated grant. We are in Windham County. Windham County rates at the bottom of all counties in Connecticut for health results across the board. Highest rates of obesity, highest rates of diabetes. Some of that has to do with food access. A lot of that has to do with exercise. The track, if it is repaired, becomes a publicly available facility. Easy to use, safe to navigate. And obviously the HVAC, the health and safety implications of that have been addressed specifically to inside the school building. So I just want to toss that out there. Windham County consistently rating at the bottom in Connecticut, and some of that I would extrapolate can be brought back to the kinds of choices that get made in communities. So just keep that in mind as well.
Thank you so much.
Wrap it up, son. Wrap it up.
Mr. Poplawski, yes.
Mr. Moderator,
Is such a motion in order?
I have been patiently waiting.
There's a motion to adjourn. I'm going to accept the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying no. No. The motion is carried. We are adjourned.